Welcome back to Through the Veil with Elle and Camille. I'm Camille.
I'm Elle.
Today we have Lindsay Garlock with us, and I have been looking forward to this episode for a long time. Let's just jump in and let Lindsay tell her story about why she's here, and there's so much we're going to talk about. And I can't wait to dive in.
I know. I'm really excited.
It's gonna be a good one.
Right, because here I am talking about the fact that my husband died out of the blue. So I'm Lindsay and I'm a widow. And it's been 15 months now, a year and a few months that my husband, John, he was 39, just basically overnight died not in his sleep, but in the really early morning. He'd been sick. Basically, after an autopsy, he had pneumonia essentially and pulmonary edema. Those details, that's a whole story in and of itself, right? But not super relevant to what we're talking about today. I actually have a timestamp from when he died because a weird thing happened. He accidentally texted me a picture. Like, it's all blurry, and this is a gruesome detail, but he was on the floor. And so from his bed to the floor. And so I got it somehow. It's like, how does that happen, right? Like a weird butt dial, but a picture. And it was 6:30 a.m. that afternoon when I had, called family and brought family in. And my mom said to me, this morning at 6:30, I woke up, I went to the bathroom. When I, came out of the bathroom, washed my hands, I looked in the mirror and had the distinct thought, everything is going to be okay.
Oh.
And she has cancer. She has terminal ovarian cancer. And in her mind, felt really comforting. And she thought, oh, like, maybe that's about, she just kind of assumed, we try to make sense of these experiences, and she didn't have anything else to
Didn't know anything else was wrong.
Yeah, she didn't know anything else was wrong. So she felt that it was about her cancer. And then, just minutes later or half an hour later, I called her and said that John was gone. And she, in that moment, knew, oh, that was John. That was John that came to me and told me everything is going to be okay, which is so John. We've had experiences before where he had kind of family information, and he went to my mom to let her be the holder of that information. Like, hey, we're going to give this to you so that you can know when and where and how to share this with everyone. And I just love that he started communicating right off the bat, first to my mom and then to his mom. So when I called my in-laws, John's parents, to tell them that he'd passed away, and again, this was a shock to everyone. He had been sick for like 24 hours. So I don't think his parents even knew he was sick.
Right.
Parents didn't know he was sick. He just basically stayed home from work that day and felt crappy all day. But when I called and told my in-laws at a later time, my mother-in-law told me that when I said that he was gone, she said it's like her spirit remembered that was the plan, that was what was going to happen, that they'd agreed to it. And
That is beautiful.
that was just in the first day. So both the first two people that I know of, that received spirit communication from John were my mom and his mom. And I think that's really sweet.
That is really sweet.
Yeah.
That's so poignant. After my son passed, I had a similar experience where it was like, this date has been in the calendar for a while. This was the plan. And I was like, it just felt right to my spirit, even though my head was like, what? Weird, right? Like,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was a huge comfort to me. And I felt it already. I felt that things were unfolding exactly as God had intended them, and that I just have a belief in God's will, and that we can't screw up the plan. Things that
What
wasn't
happened with or without us?
me as a grieving widow. When I was tempted to draw into, this is so unfair, why did this happen, this is the worst, this is wrong, this is horrible, this was a mistake, how could we have prevented this? And I went through all of that, right? I went through all the, like, where did we go wrong? Because we actually took him to the urgent care the night before, and they sent him home. They drew blood, they checked for a urinary tract infection, and they sent him home. And, there's that what if we'd gone to the ER? What if blah, blah, blah.
But if we took him to a different urgent care or to, yeah,
Yeah, with a different doctor.
all the bargaining.
All of that. And it makes your mind a horrible place to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so having those two experiences that he'd said to my mom, everything's going to be okay, and to his mom, remember, this was what was going to happen. This was how it was always going to be.
Wow.
Just helped me radically accept that this was the plan.
I like how you use the word radically, because it does feel like that, and other people almost question, like, is she just in denial right now? Is she still in shock?
And
that
I asked
radical acceptance is real, and I've lived it and I know it, and people question, they said, you're just in shock, you'll deal with this later. It's like, but I'm getting such radical peace that I can't deny it.
Yeah. It was a few weeks in where I said to my therapist, is something wrong with me? Like, because I was at such peace, and I thought, like, you'll be straight with me. Like, you'll be straight with me. Am I in denial? Like, am I in denial? And she was like, no, you are doing so well in all these things.
Whew.
So can I ask?
Yeah.
Just because, dealing with grief like this is such a very personal experience. And I have had a lot of people who have had similar experiences where they've had experiences um, with their loved ones, or other people have had first experience. And it makes them kind of angry. It's like, why didn't he come to me first? Like, why didn't I get that? Why didn't that testimony happen to me first? He went to mom instead. Like, am I not number one in his life? Did you deal with any of that? Did you feel like maybe like he was respecting your agency to deal with everything? Because I mean, you had a lot. You have a lot. Death is
Yeah,
not easy.
actually,
It's
that's a
paperwork,
great
right?
way to put it.
Yeah.
Because also with both of those women, right? This was with my mom, it was before she even knew that something had happened. And with
Right.
my mother-in-law, it was right the moment she was finding out. And for me, right, I am like in shock. I was in shock. I have videos of me, Marco Polos, of me speaking, and my language is all jabbery and gibbery and like weird. I was in shock. So
Right.
I don't know if I was even capable,
Like too close,
possibly,
maybe. Too close.
feeling something, but I did that night. That night was the first time. And I'll speak to that just for me. So that night I went to bed exhausted, right? Like the most brutal. I have 4 children. So when he died, they were 8, 6, 4, and no, I'm sorry, 8, 6, 3, and 1. So telling my children that their dad died was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I don't know if anything will top that. Emotionally just wrecked. So I went to bed just like bone tired. But I was freezing. My bedroom's in my basement. I get so cold. It was May, and like, so I don't have any heat or AC running. The basement was freezing. Anyway, I'm in bed and I'm so cold, but I'm so tired that I'm not getting out of bed to get another blanket or to put socks on. And in life, John ran hot, I ran cold, and I'd be like, come cuddle me, like, get me warm up my side of the bed, come warm up my side of the bed, and then go back to your cool side. And I asked him, I was just like, John, I need you to warm me up. And in an instant, it wasn't like I slowly got warm. It wasn't like, it was complete. Like my entire body was just warm, like in an absolute millisecond, just instantaneously. I was warm,
Wow.
and I just felt loved, and I felt squeeze on my arm. And I felt that squeeze on my arm every single night when I went to
I'm like
bed.
getting emotional about this. I'm like,
Me
this is
too.
beautiful.
So John would often throughout our marriage, he would get up earlier than me and leave for work. And he knows, if you love me, let me sleep.
Yeah.
So
I feel
he
that.
would
I feel
come,
that deeply.
but he cared that we started the day together. So he would come over and squeeze my arm and give me a kiss and just say goodbye. And I was aware of it just enough to know like he's here, and then he's going to work. Um, and I felt that squeeze distinct every single night for a month.
Whoa.
And it stopped after that. And I don't get it now. Occasionally I will.
Hmm.
So to speak to I have a family member who really sought connection with John after he passed. She was desperate for it and just yearned for it and struggled in a very different way from me. And that's something that I have now learned, that everyone grieves very differently.
Yeah.
Everyone copes very differently. But it felt like the sorrow that she was experiencing was so deep, so devastating, like more devastating to the ability to feed herself and, to get out of bed and to continue on with just normal daily things that we have to do, And I should say, I struggled too, like brushing my teeth, showering, taking vitamins. Like there are things, there's things we all have to let go when we're in like survival mode emotionally.
Right.
We'd been having experiences, and John, people were having experiences connecting with him, and not just family members but friends, coworkers even. And I mean coworkers that are friends, like
Yeah.
not to say just the lowly coworker. But so she longed for this and wasn't getting it, and was feeling like she was begging, like, please, like, where are you? And was just getting nothing.
Like spiritual FOMO.
Silence.
Just
Yeah.
spiritual silence too.
Like talking into blankness. Yeah.
Hmm.
And several months went by, and she kind of said, you know what? I need to live again. She's the most joyful, hilarious, like exuberant person, jubilant person. And so this was very not like her. And she and her family went on a boating trip, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna have fun. Like I have to have fun. I love having fun. I want to
Yeah.
have fun. So they go on this trip, and at one point they're out on the water, they're on this boat, there's music playing, and a song comes over that is a John song, like a very specific John and her song that we have a specific memory tied to. And in that instant, she felt John. And there were two other people on the boat, that family members, that she looked over, and they all saw it, like in their eyes. It was like, he's here.
He's here.
And he said to her, finally, I've been waiting. You've been so sad. You've been bumming me out. Like, I couldn't be around you because you've been so sad. Like he was waiting for this deep, heavy, low vibration emotion
Yeah.
of grief to lift.
Hmm.
And that's something that has been testified of to me over and over again in my experiences, is that deep, heavy, low vibration grief. We're not meant to live in that.
Mm-mm.
And that stunts our ability to connect with spirit, in my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like static noise. You're a radio station, you can't connect because there's too much static, right? You can't find that frequency because there's too much emotion. It's like a cloak over it, or
It's
like
a really good analogy.
That's the perfect word.
I see that a lot all the time. People are like, why am I not feeling this person? Like why? It could be 6 months after passing of somebody. It could be a year. It could be multiple years. They're just like, I can't move through this. I can't feel them. Why am I not feeling them? Am I dead inside? Is there something wrong? And I would extend it even further into like spirituality. A lot of people who go through this, they hit a kind of apathy, a numb point
yeah,
where even God seems like he's
Yeah.
stepped back,
yeah,
Yeah.
right? It's like there's nothing. There's just nothing. They're living in a place of no sensitivity, no spirit experience at all, no connection. And it is the most bereft, adrift, lonely place. And most of the time I'm like, It's because healing hasn't occurred yet. You haven't allowed light in. You've shut all your windows. You got to
Mm,
open them.
hmm.
C.S. Lewis has, I mean, it's published as a book. It's called A Grief Observed, but it's his grief journal.
That's
And
amazing.
he, if you think you know C.S. Lewis, this book will shock you
I
because
love him.
you will be shocked at he same as me. Death made me rethink
Right?
everything, question my beliefs, question God, and I came full circle and came to say, yes, I still do believe all this, as did he. But so his wife passed away, and he writes, something quite unexpected has happened. It came this morning early. For various reasons, not in themselves at all mysterious, my heart was lighter than it had been for many weeks. For one thing, I suppose I am recovering physically from a good deal of mere exhaustion. Grief is exhausting.
Hmm.
I'd had a very tiring but very healthy 12 hours the day before and a sounder night's sleep, right? Sleep when you're grieving can
Yeah.
be so challenging. But so he had a good night's sleep. And after 10 days of low hung gray skies and motionless warm dampness, remember he's in England, the sun was shining and there was a light breeze. And suddenly, at the very moment when so far I mourned H least, that's an initial H period, I remembered her best. Indeed, it was something almost better than memory, an instantaneous, unanswerable impression. To say it was like a meeting would be going too far. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yet there was that in it which tempts one to use those words. It was as if the lifting of the sorrow removed a barrier. And
Mm,
that last line, it was as if the lifting of the sorrow removed a barrier.
I love that. And I love like, let's be audacious enough to think that our loved ones would want to visit us. Like, let's just say,
Of course.
that's not taking it too far. Let's be audacious and let's be bold and say they have the capacity and they want to be close to us still. So why wouldn't we have communication or visits or impressions?
If there is existence beyond death, if there is something next, then it would be incomprehensible to think that those feelings would cease,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
If there is still identity, if there's still some nature of self-preserved, it would be ridiculous to think that you would just let go of everything that was important to who you are,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And just become some like robotic, like other person on the other side, like, oh, love and light. I forgot about my family. Like, that's not what this is about. It's not, yeah.
Right. Why
We
else would we have
we
an
are
earth
still
existence
ourselves.
and an
Right.
after existence,
Right.
right?
I would love to share another way that John communicates. So John communicates with me through song lyrics. And this is very fitting for him because he was a music junkie, just like loved music. In the few years before he died, he became a Swiftie. Like
Wow.
Oh, that's endearing.
huge, like never would have like I don't think pursued like going to a concert of hers. I don't think again like
Maybe
he
about.
loved her lyrics.
I
Like
used to say the
he
songwriting, the artistic aspect.
Yeah.
he felt like it was like poetry. He
Hmm.
perceived it that way. Maybe 3 weeks after he died, that I should just be clear that John and I had a very challenging marriage. He was a challenging person to be married to. So my husband was diagnosed bipolar, had anxiety and depression, was undiagnosed, had undiagnosed autism, and was an addict in recovery. So when he died, he had 12 years sobriety. And but addiction is addiction, and addictive personalities they don't go away. Even though he worked very hard on it, he was a challenging person to be married to. He's still my best friend and the person I want to do life and eternity with. But like all marriages, we had stuff. And I had, before he died, I had been pondering on these various hurts that I had experienced in our marriage that I had been trying to just forgive and deal with, like between me and God. Like, can I just between me and God handle this? without having to involve him. And it became clear that it was like, no, like he needs to know that he hurt you for like real amends to happen and real forgiveness. And we'd had a few conversations about this. And it almost like came as a surprise to him, some of these things. And there were a couple examples that he didn't even remember having ever happened. But and he apologized and was sweet. And I feel very grateful that when he died, we were on really good terms. Like we'd said, I love you the night before. Like we were really good. But a couple weeks after, I had fallen asleep listening to music. I just had music playing and I fell asleep. And I woke up like I was woken up to a specific song playing, and it is a Taylor Swift song. And I want to read you just a little bit of the lyrics from it. Um, it's called Afterglow by Taylor Swift. And I started listening, and I also, I enjoy music and lyrics. And usually when I'm listening to music, I put myself in the I, right? If they're singing I, this and that, I think I, this and that. So I started listening, and it felt like there's a message in this, you need to listen to these lyrics. So I'm listening and I'm thinking, like, how does this relate? And I felt John say, no, 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 it's the other way around. Flip it. It's not you. It's me. I'm the one. I'm speaking to you. And the words, and it was an apology. It says, I blew things out of proportion and now you're blue. I put you in jail for something you didn't do. I pinned your hands behind your back. I thought I had reason to attack, but no. Why'd I have to break what I love so much? It's on your face and I'm to blame. And I need to say, it's all me. In my head, I'm the one who burned us down, but it's not what I meant. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I don't want to do this to you. I don't want to lose this with you. I need to say, don't go, meet me in the afterglow. It's excruciating to see you low. I just want to lift you up and not let you go. This ultraviolet morning light below tells me this love is worth the fight. I lived like an island, punished you with silence. Went off like sirens crying. Why'd I have to break what I love so much? It's on your face. Don't walk away. I need to say, it's all on me. In my head, I'm the one who burned us down, but it's not what I meant. I'm sorry that I hurt you. I don't want to do this to you. I don't want to lose this with you. And it was like huge. It was huge because we hurt each other in marriage, we love each other and we try our best and we try to just figure it out. But inevitably, when you love someone so much and you're so vulnerable, you can be hurt. You can be hurt by them. And, my husband had undiagnosed autism until before he passed. Like in the last couple years, he had accepted it and didn't, ever seek a diagnosis, but like self-diagnosed.
Right.
There was a year during COVID where all our kids were home and John was working from home and he wore noise canceling headphones for a year.
I would
like,
too, to be honest.
like all the
That's a lot.
time. And this is just a little example of like, there's things we do that push people away, that push people out and isolate. And COVID was actually a really challenging time for our family in a lot of ways. And I felt so seen by those words. And so it's an ongoing thing that's how he communicates things to me. Things he wants for me, the kind of life he wants for me, even just little cute, like inside joke types of things will come in songs and songs that come on at a certain time. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
I love the example of that. A lot of people have boxes they draw around how communication has to look. It's
Mm.
like it's gotta be a dream. You gotta come to me, you gotta hug me, like I gotta feel your hands on my body. Like a lot of people will expect certain outcomes. And being open to even the most subtle forms of communication can sometimes be the most meaningful because they're the most frequent. They're
Yeah.
around us all the time,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
These kinds of signs. I know tons of people who get song lyrics and get music, and there are a lot of people too that would write it off and be like, oh, that reminds me of this person. Isn't that
Exactly.
interesting?
Mm,
But having that kind of faith and allowing yourself to be open to the notion of this is actually kind of like communication, like
Yes.
him demonstrating it so
Like, you
strongly,
know,
like he woke you up. He was like,
right. Yeah.
this is your song. This is me talking to you right now. Like, set the bar. Yeah.
and like with the arm squeeze thing, right? I loved that. And it was physical. Like I physically felt it. And I had another, and I wanted it to keep going, right? But that kind of stopped. And the other one experience I have was the most powerful, most visceral and physical I've experienced, John, was in a moment. I attended a fireside, just a meeting, worship meeting for my church, and we were singing a closing hymn, and it was I Stand All Amazed, which is one of my favorites, and which is his favorite, and it was the closing hymn we sang at his funeral.
Mm,
And I had felt the spirit of God, I'd felt God's love and it just so strongly throughout this meeting, just powerful. Like if we're talking about vibration, frequency, like I was up here, I was just having
High
such
vibing.
high vibing totally. And as we're singing, of course, this closing hymn comes on, and it's the same closing hymn from the funeral. And I feel that John, I don't feel him sit down, but and there's an empty space next to me. I feel that he's next to me. I physically feel him lean over to me, put his hand on my back. He's rubbing my back, and he whispers in my ear, "I'm so proud of you."
wow.
And it, like, if I had been closing my eyes, it felt like a person was sitting and doing, and felt on
Hmm.
here, all of that. And I just loved it. And right, I wish I could have those experiences every day.
Yeah.
So speaking to the way we want to put communication, spirit communication, in a box, right? Like I would love if I got that experience every day, but I don't. I mostly get just thoughts. They're just downloads, just a thought. And but I know it's him. Oftentimes it happens when I'm thinking about something in a way that maybe he'd like me to see differently. A lot of times it's with our kids. If I'm in a situation, I'm overwhelmed, or I'm reacting to a child in a particular way, I will have that just, and it's John pushing into my mind saying, maybe think of it this way. And I'm like, oh yeah, of course. Like, and usually I'm like, duh. I'm like, and I always say thank you. I always say, oh, thank you. Like, he helps me find things. Like there are times where I just know where to go to find whatever it is we're looking for. And thank you, just like thank you. He's
Hmm.
started our car. There was a time our car battery was having trouble. Um, and and like, right, again, it goes to personal interpretation, but for me, I'm developing a stronger sense of just knowing. It's just a knowing that, like,
Hmm.
oh, cool, thank you, perfect, like helped us get out of this jam, or helps me find things, helps. So he would, when my daughter was 1 when he passed, and she still took a nap every day, and John put her down for her nap every day, because when he died, he had been working from home, and that was like his routine. We'd have lunch and he'd put her down for a nap. I would hear her for months talking to him in her crib. um you know I'd put her down for a nap and leave, and I'd hear daddy, dada, dada, like babbling. And so I know he's here. I know he's around. I'm surprised that this light isn't flickering right now.
It's like for
This
the
is
podcast, we'll let it be.
Right. He has
We'll let it
respect
be.
for the podcast.
yeah, this is his office. No, it was not pink when it was his office. But he lets me know when he wants me to think of him. Basically, as soon as I acknowledge it, it stops, because I'm like, hi, I
Yeah.
love you. I know, hi. It's just this ongoing, like, he's still here, and my kids feel him. My son has said things, and
So I want to point out here, this happens a lot. This happens a ton with people where they will feel somebody's presence really strongly, kind of upfront. And it'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, they're here with me, and they have this expectation. It's always going to be this way. Like, isn't it
Yes. That was
wonderful?
my experience.
Um,
Yeah.
and then it slowly peters out, or maybe
And
not slowly. Maybe it suddenly stops.
people say, I've heard so many people say, like the veil is so thin when
That's
someone dies.
right.
I'm always like, but so are you saying it
It's
thickens again?
yeah, it's like just
Like,
closes on
what
us.
are you saying? Is it going to close?
Well,
It's
so
open.
my
But it's
explanation for
not.
this
I'd love to hear it.
mediumistically. So this happens, it happens with people with spirit communication too. When you're jumping into your gift, a lot of times it's very, it's much more discernible. Like you're getting really strong communications or really strong signs, or you're seeing things all the time, or like people are manifesting themselves in interesting ways. And then over the course, it's like it kind of slows down and it becomes quieter. And you're like, well, where'd it go? Like,
Yeah.
am I not connecting in the same way? Like, am I
Mhm.
just losing it? Am I losing this? It's the same experience people have. Am I losing contact with my loved one? Are they pulling away? Are they going somewhere? Like, are they gone now? They're not. The difference kind of
Other.
happens with it's about energy because it takes a lot of energy to have very strong manifestations. Everything is energy, right? We're energy. Soul is energy. But right up front, we need more. Like, we don't believe. We're like,
Yeah.
this didn't happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Because
so,
I would convince, right? Like if I hadn't had that super powerful moment, I would talk myself out of it. I'd
right.
say, oh, I just
You'd be like,
want, or when I have
maybe
the
he's
thought,
here, maybe not.
because
Yeah.
he jokes. That's another thing. He makes jokes all the time, and that was him in life. And some of them are crude.
He's
Sometimes I
male.
just think, is it just your mind doing it because you know what he would have said in
Right.
this situation? He would have looked at this and that's what he would have said.
Personal bias.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a real thing, even in spirit communication. But as we have had credibility develop with our belief, with their existence, with still being here, they're able to stop shouting at us
Yeah.
and they can just start talking normally.
Yeah.
And then it's like, hey, notice this thing. Hey, by
Mhm.
the way, I'm here. Hey, by the way, there's this instead of like, pay
Yeah. Yeah.
attention, you
Here's a good
know?
idea versus like,
Yeah.
physical touch.
And he saves me all the time with like, I will look up to see something at the exact right moment.
Right. He's
Or
like, ding.
Mm,
yeah, thoughts. And I just come, honestly, I don't make a big deal out of it. I just come to expect it. It happens almost daily throughout the day. And it's just, oh, thank you. So he passed in May, when my kids had just gotten out of school. So we had this summer and we were getting ready to go back to school. And I was getting nervous. John didn't like the kids going to school. He wanted them home with him. He was like, I don't want them like getting bullied or like being alone. Like I don't, he
That's
worried
so
about them
sweet.
a lot. And I was like, they're fine. Like they need to grow up. they need they need
They
to go
need
have
this
some independence. They need this. And they do.
emotional toughness.
Absolutely. So for the first time, I was, that's not my experience to feel that way. I was starting to feel like, their dad just died. They're going back to school. Like, what's going to happen when someone asks that, someone else is talking about their dad? Are they going to get all emotional and upset? Or is it going to be awkward for them? Or, like, I don't know. They're going to be on their own. And I was getting worried. And I was in my boys' bedroom and I was folding and putting away clean laundry. And John told me, Lindsay, I'm going to be with them. Like,
mm-mm,
and he said, I can, and this is a little extreme, and I would not ever recommend repeating this sentiment to another widow mom, but he told me, I can be a better dad now. He said, I can be a better father now that I am spirit because of all the things that I told you, right? All the things that made parenting with him in life and being married to him very challenging.
mm,
He is free of those burdens now, and he has the ability as spirit to fractal and be with all of us at the same time,
mm-hmm.
protect us and help us and watch over us. And
Inspire, push you, see all of the
Yeah.
the circumstances and situations that you're engaged in a
Mhm.
much clearer way.
And be 3 steps ahead of you, maybe, to like kind of
Yeah.
anticipate what's coming.
Yeah. And we are very much like still united as parents and as, there was Valentine's Day and someone said like, "Oh, do you feel?" That sounded like they were they weren't being, they were trying to be
Like,
nice.
that's a bad tone to take. That's not.
You poor thing. No, they were like, "Oh, is it hard?" Like, and I was like, "I feel married." And I actually have dated, and so that's a whole other thing, but I still feel married. I'm still in a relationship with him. I mean, I feel married to him, and we're united in purpose. And I just talk about how we are apart. I look at it as like he's on a mission or he's on a deployment, and our relationship is still like the apology, it felt like a letter. That song, we are working through things, and I've had my moments where I've needed to express anger for things and that he, and also things that he did in life, but also I've had to own up to my own part. A huge part, I think, of losing a spouse is processing your whole marriage. Um,
Yeah.
Looking back on, and that can be really ugly and hard and devastating at times, but beautiful when you see it through. And to have the perspective that we can still work on this together and we can still develop and strengthen and get through things, it's it's very peaceful to me. I feel gratitude, honestly. I feel gratitude, not that I would have wished for him to die, of course, but I feel grateful that he's not constrained by some of his particular earth life challenges, and that he is supportive of me. I just feel that the overall feeling is love and support.
I think that's really important. You mentioned it when anytime you get a sign or indication from him, you say thanks, because I think that the more we, first of all, they know that we're seeing it, so we have to acknowledge it. And then when we thank them, they come more frequently. That's what I've noticed with my son and with others from the other side, that to just acknowledge and thank them is like the pattern for keeping those coming. But then in general, to be able to open up to the other side, even if there is still deep grief, you can have gratitude and deep grief at the same time and hold them in separate hands to be able to open up your awareness to the other side of the veil. Um, to have that gratitude that, we have this loving relationship, that we had the time together we had, that we still have a relationship even though it's different. To have that gratitude really opens up your awareness of what they're trying to do for you and say to you and how they connect with you on the other side. Gratitude
Yeah.
is a portal to connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And gratitude is looking for the good. So I get signs too, right? Like all sorts of things. Right now it's dragonflies.
Mm.
It changes, but like right now it's dragonflies. I was in the park the other day and I was so exhausted. I laid down in the grass, just like laid down in the grass like this and had my eyes closed and just opened my eyes, and like right above me is this huge dragonfly. And then it was gone. And it was like I didn't hear it, I didn't sense it in anything. It wasn't that close, but it was a right directly in my vision above me. And I know people have things like that, and they'll say, "Oh, it reminds me of John. It reminds me of someone," or
Yeah.
"I think that is John." But there are these signs that, hey, I'm here, I'm around, I love you. And if you have eyes to see, you'll see.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
don't, you won't.
That's an important distinction. Um, there are a lot of skeptics, I think, that draw a line with that and go like, well, you're just reading into things. Like, of course you want to see him in everything. It's like God. It's like, well, he isn't everything. Like, he really
Yeah,
is, though. There's nothing wrong with that. Building credibility because you'd had all these big experiences. You'd had these solid, undeniable accountings of experiences with him. It's faith building, right? This is what faith is now. You've had a couple of things that are foundationary. And now all these little things on top of it you can know. Like you have a personal experience. You have a personal witness of like, no, but this is real. And it doesn't matter if anybody else thinks so or not, because you know what that is. And that feeling that you identified before is still there with you in those other even smaller, maybe even inconsequential to some people moments. It's there and it does matter. It builds up, it counts.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's important to recognize when something is like of divine origin. You know, with signs, we say, is it repetitive? Is it unusual? But then there's that third, like, does it hit me in a certain way? Like that song did, you know? It hits me in a specific way. If we aren't willing to get to that point of subtlety where we pay attention to what's the weight that this feels like it has on my spirit, then we won't be able to really bridge that gap of spirit communication because it's mostly not going to be squeezes on the arm and waking up from a song. Yeah, we're still going to have those scattered throughout our story, but it's not going to be the norm. The norm is those thoughts, those nudges, those feelings. If we're not willing to like
Yeah.
embrace that subtlety and explore that, then we're never really going to get to the next step in spirit
Same with
communication.
God. It's the same with
Same with God.
testimony, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, we have a lot more we're actually going to talk about with Lindsay because her story is just so rich and full of all these amazing
So
things.
consider this a pause.
Yeah. She's going to be back probably next week, and she's going to talk to us a lot more about her different experiences she's had with spirit guides and other very interesting kind of
We
topics
have some more
to
stories
explore.
about parenting through the veil. You know,
Parenting through the veil.
yeah, I'm excited.
Um, so tune in next week. Hey, Lindsay, you work as a grief coach, right? With people sharing this amazing wisdom and healing that you've gained. How can people find you? Are you taking new clients?
The best place to find me right now is on Instagram, and my handle is at the acceptance girl. I am taking a pause on taking new clients right in this very moment, which is August 29th, 2024, because my mom, I talked about my mom with her ovarian cancer, and it's looking like, things
It's
are
winding up
getting close to her end of her mortal journey. And I'm just trying to stay very open and flexible for
those
those
needs.
treasured moments. But
Yeah,
soon, more clients, and I'd love to talk to anyone that has questions or needs support.
and
Yeah.
connect. We will put her information down in the notes below, so you can always find her on that. And we will see her next week.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank
This
you
was
so much, Lindsay.
It's
bye.
fantastic.